Coming to the third question, examine the linkages between 19th century's Indian Renaissance and emergence of national identity. For this question, the mistake that most of the students do is they write most part of their answer on what is Indian Renaissance and various movements of the Renaissance. But only those will get the marks who link the Indian Renaissance with the national identity. Here, the linkage is the most important factor. Now, let us start with the introduction. It's better that in the introduction, you clearly mention what do you mean by Indian Renaissance and what do you mean by national identity. You better define these two terms in the introduction in just few words. You can say, as you know, Renaissance is like a rebirth. In the Europe, the Renaissance happened between the 14th and 17th centuries. That is mostly in the rational thinking, science and technology. However, in India, the 19th century Renaissance is mostly concerned with the socio-religious reforms. For example, as you know, the father of the Indian Renaissance was Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Okay? Then you come and describe what is national identity. See, national identity means feeling entire India as a cohesive whole. Feeling entire India as having a shared history, shared culture, shared past, traditions, etc. Now, after finishing the introduction, after you tell the examiner that you know what is the meaning of Indian Renaissance and you know what is the main national identity, then you move on to the main body of the answer. In the body, you take each movement of the Renaissance and describe how it is linked to the national identity. So in the introduction, you describe Renaissance and national identity. Now in the body, for example, first say the Theosophical movement, Theosophical society formed and led by the Westerners, in which Annie Besant played a very important role. Here, Annie Besant and some Westerners of the Theosophical movement actually have glorified the philosophical traditions and religious traditions of India. Thus, Indians got self-confidence, self-respect, because Westerners are coming and glorifying the India's traditions. This actually helped Indians to have a national identity of their past, of their traditions, which helped them to fight against the British with more confidence. Second, for example, you can talk about Abanindranath Tagore. Abanindranath Tagore created an Indian style of painting in the late 19th century, where he was inspired from non-Western artistic traditions. Particularly, he has drawn the inspiration from the ancient Indian and medieval Indian art. The ancient Indian art means mostly mural paintings which observe Ajanta caves, and the medieval paintings, the miniature ones, the miniature paintings. From this ancient and medieval, he has drawn inspiration and created a unique nationalist art. This we call it as a national identity in terms of art, this is artistic, in terms of painting. Similarly, we can talk about Jyotirbai Phule. Jyotirbai Phule has created Satyasodak Samaj. There, he mostly fought against the domination of the upper caste, the Brahmanical domination, wherein he is able to unite all the depressed classes. This actually created a national identity among the depressed classes, and they could actually try to fight for their justice. Then we can talk about Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Swami Dayanand Saraswati. He created Arya Samaj, where he wanted to create a national identity based on creation of a casteless and classless India with the slogan "Back to Vedas." So thus we can link this also with the national identity. Similarly, you can talk about Swami Vivekananda also. Swami Vivekananda also spread the Upanishads, Gitas. He also tried for reviving the Hinduism, and he has spread the glory of the India's past throughout the world. Then you can talk about the father of Renaissance, Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Raja Ram Mohan Roy tried to purify the Hinduism and create a common understanding about monotheism by using the Vedas and Upanishads mostly, along with the rationalism, the reason. So there are many people who are educated who agreed with Raja Ram Mohan Roy in his Brahma Samaj formed in 28, where they are able to again create a national identity about the purification of Hinduism as well as monotheism. Now, along with these things, you can mention many other movements. If the time and space permits, you can mention other movements of the Indian Renaissance and how they are linked to the national identity. However, in these kind of answers, conclusion forms a major role. That is where you get most of the marks. So in the conclusion, you have to write your opinion. In the conclusion, you have to write your opinion. For example, you can say that the cultural and intellectual isolation of India that happened for a very long time has broken with the Indian Renaissance. So India introduced itself to the world as a socially and culturally reformed country. It has brought confidence among the Indians. Similarly, these socio-religious reforms actually created nationalism among the Indians, national sentiment among the Indians, because of which they started political struggle against the British rule. For example, the political consciousness among the social elite like engineers, graduates, doctors and such kind of social elite actually created common platforms for the political struggle against the British rule. One example that you can write is 1885. Indian National Congress was formed with the help of A.O. Hume, which became a common platform for political liberation for many Indians, social reform and autonomy of India. Towards the conclusion, you can even write about the book Discovery of India, in which Jawaharlal Nehru says that the history of India is the major national identity for the India.